Welcome back to the Middle of Culture. I am one of your co-hosts, Peter.
And Peter, I'm Palm Springs Eden. How you doing?
I'm
just
great.
crack open a cold one here as we relax poolside, talking about living in the desert with listening to Bing Crosby and Perry Como.
I was not ready for any of that, so you definitely caught me off guard. Nicely done.
Look, I'm just back from the desert, so I'm relaxed and feeling like a mid-century asshole.
Well, welcome back from the desert. So what have you been up to, Eden?
Well, I was in Palm Springs.
Okay.
So we went out to Palm Springs to meet some family of Cassie's and some of their family for Thanksgiving. So Cassie's parents own a trailer in this mobile home park out there that's like a retirement community. And the reason they own it is because two of my father-in-law's brothers also own trailers in this trailer park. Mobile homes, which I'll get to why they're mobile homes and not trailers in a second. Because their parents owned a mobile home in this mobile home community. And seeing as how their parents are from Vancouver, Canada, I'd always wondered to myself, why buy a house in Palm Springs? Of all places, Palm Springs, and why this specific spot? Is there any reason why, or was it just like this was what was available? Anyway, we stayed down there in one of the uncle's houses because Cassie's brother and his family were staying in their parents' house, and we didn't want to overcrowd, and there were 3 empty houses we could go stay in instead, so we stayed in one of those.
All right.
Very chill place. Very cool. Like I say, it's the senior community, has a pool and a hot tub that are connected to it, has like a cute little library, all this sorts of stuff. But as we're hanging out in there, we go to the library because we wanted to see what it is. My wife, being the librarian that she is always like, oh, I got to go see whatever library they have. So we went and looked, and they had a bunch of news articles about this place. And this place that my in-laws have their mobile home was the first trailer park in the country to be called a mobile home community and not a trailer park. And why, you might ask? Because it was started by Bing Crosby in 1952, and he was like, I think the name trailer park sounds gauche and low class, so we're going to change it to mobile home community.
Okay, there you go.
So again, because of course it is, my in-laws' Palm Springs vacation home is in the trailer park that Bing Crosby started. And all of the streets are named after his friends who helped him do it. So, like, one of the houses was on Barbara Stanwyck Road. And it's like, okay, we're just really leaning into this. Across the street from this mobile home community is the Thunderbird Golf Course. And you may be asking yourself, the Thunderbird, what else is named a Thunderbird? Maybe a Seminole Ford Roadster? I wonder what came first, the golf course or the car. Peter, the car is named after the golf course that was a stone's throw.
I believe that completely.
And like, it was weird. We had a delightful time. We had a very good time. The desert was very good for our sinuses. We were able to relax, just chill. We swam every day. We went to Joshua Tree. We went to see the Cabezon dinosaurs. We watched a lot of movies, we read a lot of books, and just chilled. It was great. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. I was working until about 1:30, 1:45 Thursday, and then I got home. So, it was kind of one of those. Is it because
you were on
holidays.
call and there were emergencies?
Yes.
I was going to say, I can't imagine these were like scheduled surgeries because it's a federal holiday, for God's sake.
No, this was on call, and I'm not bitter or anything, but it was because the lazy piece of shit urologists over in Jackson Hole,
your favorite
didn't think they needed to be on call for the holiday. So they were all just gone. They didn't have anybody covering their hospital. And so a guy got flown from Jackson over to Portneuf so that I could take care of him because we have urology coverage all the time. So it was great.
What a bunch of sweeties out there in Jackson Hole. Where were they going on vacation to? They live in a tourist trap.
It just sort of fits the MO of people who work and live in Jackson Hole. I like to go to Jackson because of Teton and Yellowstone and because of those strong associations of our growing up years in which we went with Nana and Gramps and, you know, basically seemed like almost every summer, you know, at least every other, we'd go up there and we would camp and we'd boat and we'd fish and all that stuff. So I have fond memories of that. But as an adult, when I've gone back to Jackson, I hate Jackson Hole, the town, city. And people who live there, just everything about it just feels super douchey. I mean, it's just the same vibe I get when I go to Sun Valley. I feel the same way. So, you know, but no, it was really nice. Aubrey and Hayden, her fiance, came up. Jess came up and was able to spend most of the weekend. Aubrey and Hayden went back Saturday. So we kind of hung out with them. I got home plenty of time. We did dinner here. And then we played a new game, fun game that came just before Thanksgiving, timed just right. It was a game I kickstarted. It's called Modern Problems Require Fantasy Solutions. Think of it as an apples to apples, again, Cards Against Humanity sort of. You have one card that's the prompt, and then everybody plays from their hand. And so the prompt cards are all modern problems, things like I accidentally liked my ex's Instagram picture from 2 years ago or something like that. And then all of your solutions are fantasy solutions. I cast Fireball. I cast Decrepify. I, leave, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Some of them were
the innkeeper and empty his till.
Yes, stuff like that.
Things you do in a D&D game, since everyone functionally in a D&D game is evil, regardless of their stated alignment. We all know every D&D team eventually just becomes a roving band of murder hobos. Like that's just what happens.
That is what happens. So it's that, but then it's also fun because you additionally have in the deck of the solutions, you'll have spell cards. You play a spell card on someone else, then they either have to do something or they can't do something until like their next turn, or you'll get a curse card where you have to do something. For example, I got a curse card. I drew a curse card and I couldn't tell anybody what I was doing. I just stood up and walked around the house and turned off all the lights, and then came back with my cell phone flashlight on and was playing the game that way, and had to do that until one of the people said something along the lines of, "I'm afraid of the dark." So we did that. I had one where until my next turn, I just had to yell everything I said. And Alyssa was perhaps reminded, perhaps it was new information to her, that I have a voice that, shall we say, projects very well. She was sitting across from me and she couldn't believe how loud I was. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We laughed really hard playing that game. So it was nice, but yeah, just here, low key. Like I say, I was on call all through the whole weekend. So we couldn't travel or anything. So we stayed around and hung out and watched I actually consented to watch 2 Netflix Christmas movies.
Do tell.
And so the first one we watched Hot Frosty.
The famous,
Frosty.
The
infamous
Hot Frosty. Here's my question.
Yep. Okay.
My impression is, from things that I've heard vaguely from people, is that it's not as hot as you want it to be. This is not a sexy enough movie
at all.
I want this to feel like it should be on Showtime. If you're going to call it Hot Frosty and have it be like a sexy movie like that, then I need there to be sex in it. Come on.
No. It's just boring. That Frosty's a hottie.
I reject this. It needs to be far hornier than it sounds like this movie was.
Oh, it was not horny at all. It was incredibly unhorny. In fact, it was way less horny than the second movie that we watched. I will say the only reason we decided to watch Hot Frosty is because I was looking at the cast list, and the guy, which I'm blanking on his name now, who plays Doug Judy, the Pontiac Bandit. in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, is the sheriff. And Joe Latruglio, I think is that's his name, who plays Charles Boyle, is the deputy. And so I was like, oh, maybe we could. Yeah, it was an incredibly it's an incredibly banal movie. Like it's so plain and saccharine, and everything about it is safe. Nothing about it is hot.
What a bummer.
Yeah. Then the other night we watched, so the other movie is the new Lindsay Lohan / Kristen Chenoweth vehicle, Our Little Secret. And I will say Our Little Secret is objectively a better movie. The acting is better. That's a low bar.
Sure.
But it was a little too complicated. Like when it was all said and done, I enjoyed the banal simplicity of Hot Frosty.
Sure.
And Our Little Secret was kind of a Christmas movie in that the plot contrivances of the film occurred because it was Christmas time and it brought these characters back together. But Christmas had nothing to do with the actual plot itself, which was a little disappointing. But between watching both of those and the week that our father was out here watching things, my Netflix recommendations are super fucked right now. So yeah, there's that. That's bad. But yeah, other than that, what have you been checking out? Anything good? Because I shared the bad things that I've been checking out.
Yeah. So like I said, we watched a fair amount of movies while we were out in Palm Springs because like neither of us brought a laptop. And so we weren't doing any work that we should maybe not be doing. I didn't bring a single gaming device. I have too many gaming devices and I left every single one of them home.
Good for you. Sometimes you got to.
Sometimes you need to just unplug that way. And it was very good. But that meant that we watched a fair amount of TV. So on Thanksgiving itself, we actually watched for the first time, either of us had ever seen it, the seminal Thanksgiving classic, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Have you ever seen this movie?
I have not, but interestingly, I was just listening to a podcast episode. I think I may have finished it either last night or this morning, where they were talking about that as sort of the quintessential Thanksgiving movie.
It was really funny. The thing about it is a very funny movie. John Candy and Steve Martin are great. They have really good chemistry between the two of them. They really play off of each other really well. It's a movie that I would highly recommend if you've never seen it. One thing that is very funny about it, though, we were watching it on, they have cable out there in this in her uncle's guest house. And do you know what's the most miserable thing in the world? Watching things on TV, which we have
true.
never, in the history of our relationship, we have never had terrestrial television or cable of any ilk. We have always been streaming people because we are 21st century people. And so we've never paid for cable. We've never paid for satellite. Do we pay for 3 or 4 streaming services that we should maybe trim down to 1 or 2? Yes, we do. But regardless, we also pay for any of those to not show us ads. We pay for Hulu, no ads, please. Thank you very much. So I'm not used to watching things with ads. When I watch things on YouTube, Ghostery is not showing me a single ad. Between having AdBlock Plus, uBlock Origin, and Ghostery all installed on my browser, I have not seen an ad in years. Like, are you kidding me? No, I don't see ads. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is generously a 90-minute movie. It was 3 hours on the Country Music Channel.
No, that's terrible.
It was miserable. There were so many ads. And this is a movie that, you can tell that it's an R-rated movie, but you can tell that it's rated R because of language. There are a couple, it would cut out the audio entirely of the person speaking instead of bleeping it or something. And it didn't do it that much. Although there's one very famous scene where Steve Martin says fuck about 15 times and it's very funny and haha, everyone laughs, which maybe was made funnier and more absurd by the fact that it would just cut out and it would be like, and you and this car and this company. It was kind of funny for that. But like, again, they didn't cut a ton out of this movie, but it should have been 2 hours max. It was 3 hours. And that's all they showed the entire day on this channel, was showing this movie 6 times. And you're like, you should have shown this movie 12 times because it is a 90-minute movie. But regardless, it was wild. It's still a very funny movie. I would never watch it on TV again. I would watch it streaming if I ever wanted to watch it again. But it's good.
Yeah, you know, you were spot on. I mean, I just went and looked, 1 hour and 33 minutes. So yeah, 90-minute movie that they doubled in time.
Yeah, they turned into a 3-hour snooze fest. Cassie fell asleep. The ads were so much, and she's been so tired anyway with, her life and work and stuff, that as soon as she stopped moving, she was like out like a lamp. But I enjoyed it. And then we also watched, so she read a book while we were out there called None of This Is True, which is this like, I don't know how, she told me all about it. I don't know how I would describe it. I think it's kind of a thrillery type book. The Goodreads calls it a thriller mystery. And so she had been reading it and told me all about it as it was going on. And then once she finished it, she was like, this reminds me of this movie Ingrid Goes West, which apparently she had seen before, but I had never seen. And some of it takes place in like the area of Palm Springs. So she was like, we need to watch this. It takes place around Joshua Tree. So we're like, okay, let's watch this movie. Stars Aubrey Plaza, Elizabeth Olsen, Wyatt Russell, a bunch of people you all know. And it was really, really good. It's about this girl who like clearly has no healthy attachments. And so she unhealthily attaches to anyone that shows her the slightest bit of attention. And then the problems that ensue when that is how you are structuring your life is not around healthy relationships widely among a community, but instead hyper-focused, unhealthy codependent style relationships. And it gets pretty wild near the end, which is why it reminded her of this thriller where some real wild shit had happened. And like unreliable narrator stuff and things like that. I thought it was really good. I liked it quite a bit.
Cool.
But we were watching that the night before we left, and it gets dark so early, so we were just watching TV. And then as soon as it was over, we were watching it on Tubi, which again is a streaming service with ads, but way less ads. I will say considerably less ads than the country music station that was showing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles had shown me, because that added maybe 10 minutes to the playtime as opposed to 87. But regardless, after it was over, then the Tubi, menu was just up. And I was like, because we've been talking about, I had heard a lot of people talk about Tubi as like, honestly, probably the secret best streaming service in terms of the amount of stuff that's on it. The fact that it is all 100% free. You just have to watch a few ads. It's not a big deal. But like, you don't have to pay for it. It's got more than every other service. And so we were talking about that and like just like looking at what was on there, and all of Columbo is on Tubi. And Cassie was like, I'm kind of in a mystery mood. You seem to like Columbo. Why don't we turn Columbo on?
Okay.
And then we proceeded to watch the first 2 Columbo movies because she liked it a lot. And then she came home and I think she's been watching them since. Because they're just like extremely watchable without having to pay that close of attention. Like for the second one, we went and grabbed all of our clothes out of the bedroom and pulled them into the front room so that we could pack while we were watching the second movie, because it just didn't matter that much. But it was fun. It's still good. Columbo. It's great background noise. You turn it on the background of your life and you have a great time. And those are the big things we watched. I've continued to read the Steerswoman series. I finished book 2 while I was out there.
Nice.
It was incredible. It was even better than the first one. I'd really, as a person I know who likes fantasy, they're not that long and they are really well written. I think you would really enjoy them.
Cool.
So if you find time and you don't know what to read, I would recommend the Steerswoman books. And that's kind of where I'm at. Just hanging out. Other than that, the other thing I need to mention, Infinity Nikki is out, folks.
I saw it in the App Store and I almost downloaded it just in honor of you, but I did not.
Here's the thing. I mentioned earlier I was in the beta test and I played a few hours and then I was like, I'm not going to keep these fashions. So I need to stop playing because I don't want to get some beautiful outfits and then lose them when it goes to full release because it was a closed beta, so nothing was going to transfer over. So I stopped playing pretty early into the first game. Like, I think there's like 7 chapters in this base release. And I stopped in like chapter 2 or whatever. I'm up to chapter 4 right now. And let me say, they should have changed the way that they roll out the areas that you go to and or scrapped the first area entirely. Because the first area feels like generic, pastoral, oh, this is, beautiful rolling hills and the occasional monster you have to throw some purification orb at. But, like, it's not a big deal. And then you get to the second one and you suddenly are having to do a whole lot of platforming. And it's ropey, floaty platforming. It ain't great platforming, but it's fun. And then you get to the third area and it's wild. Like, there is weird architecture everywhere and weird stuff you have to climb on, and you have to get a second suit that lets you glide in a different way than the first gliding suit that you unlocked. And it's really, really cool. But it's 15 hours into this game, and I'm like, you should have put this earlier in the game. What are you doing? No, it's really good. I'm having a delightful time. If you are curious about it, dear listeners, it is a gacha game, but the gacha is just for fashions, and anything functional that you need to play the game you get for free. And like, there are a bunch of, style designs that you get from opening chests and doing contests and quests and stuff. So there's no shortage of outfits for you to unlock without even engaging with the gacha mechanic whatsoever. But they're also being, at least in this first patch, extremely generous with the gacha. I think I've pulled I haven't given him a penny, and I think I've pulled 120 times between the 2 different banners. So very generous gacha. And I've got some very cute fits. And every time you do it, and here's the fun thing, you put together your main fit that you're wearing in all the cutscenes and when you're just running around, and you can change that whenever. But anytime you use any of your abilities, it changes you to the other outfit for a few seconds. So when you shoot the purification orbs, which is like your attack or whatever, then it changes you to the cool attack outfit for a few seconds, then you swap back. And when you're floating, it changes you to the floating outfit or to the other floating outfit. Or to the animal grooming outfit, or the bug catching outfit, or the fishing outfit, and it's just fun. It's just fun. The outfits are cute. The storyline is really weird. It's not as weird as Shining Nikki got. I am not locked in a battle between different paramilitary organizations to control the goddess of design, which is where things eventually have gotten in Shining Nikki. It's not that weird. But it is pretty weird because there is some god named the Wishing One who died, and he has 2 sets of descendants. The wishfuls, I don't remember. These weird little pixie-looking things, and then these weird sacks of sentient cloth. And these are 2 warring factions that hate each other. And I'm just like, okay, we got pixies versus sentient sacks of cloth. And they hate each other, and they're going to war, and I'm trying to stop them from fighting each other. All right. The Nikki team is still out here making the weirdest shit you've ever played. But anyway, I'm having a lot of fun with it. If you are interested in a very weird open world exploration game where the goal is make the cutest outfit you can, check it out. Anyway, what have you been checking out?
Actually, it's funny because we're a few days later into December. I've been checking out a little bit more than I would have had otherwise. As previously mentioned, so I did not finish the book.
Did you finish your 55 or your 50?
Yes. Yeah. So I got to about 52,000 by the end of November. I have since backed off, and I basically every day write either 500 words or 25 minutes, whichever one arrives more quickly. Generally, it's the 500 words because it usually doesn't take that long to write. But so I've had a little more free time. But my goal is to keep doing that. I want to write every day until I am done with the book so that this one doesn't sort of languish and hang out there and as long as the last one did. But because of the writing, I did check out some music since last we talked. You know me, I listen to a lot of music, especially when I'm writing. A few things that I want to mention. You and I texted just a little bit. The newest album from Opeth came out, The Last Will and Testament. Everybody is out there saying, oh, this is death metal Opeth again. There is a return of the growls. I think I texted you. I got halfway through the second song and was like, nope, I'm good. This is still weird 70s prog with just heavier guitars and occasional growls. And so I don't know if I'll ever go back to that one, honestly. I have come to accept that what Opeth is doing and is not currently anything I'm interested in, and that's cool. That's fine. I can always go back to the albums of theirs that I like, and the good news is there are plenty of bands putting out music that I just don't need to worry about the fact that I don't dig what Opeth is doing anymore, and that's all right. A band that I do dig what they're doing is Beyond Grace. They're from the UK. They're kind of a progressive death metal band. And their second EP, Welcome to the New Dark Ages Part 2, came out in the last couple of weeks. They are releasing these. They're like kind of 3-song EPs. Part 1 came out last year. Part 2 came out this year. Part 3 is coming out next year. And then I think they're going to do a physical release that's all 9 tracks together. But it's really good. It's good. It's heavy. It's aggressive. It's kind of what I needed right now. So that one's been getting a lot of play. Mother of Millions. They are a band from Greece. Their fourth album, Magna Mater, is really good. It's kind of on the poppier side of stuff, but it's got a real kind of groove, interesting. I don't know how I'd describe them, but I've been digging them a lot. And then the one that really kind of came as a surprise is the album Mur by the band Mur, M-U-R. They are from Iceland. I am going to send to you, Eden, a picture of the cover.
Okay.
So I have sent Eden their Bandcamp page with the cover art there. You see the cover art of just those 3 just delightful, pleasant-looking Icelandic lads just kind of staring up and off to the corner. I don't know. I saw that picture. It made me laugh, and I went, I'll check out this. So I started checking it out, and the first song, Eldhoff, came in, and it was this kind of a little shoegazy, a little kind of post-metal, moody sort of stuff with, these nice Icelandic vocals. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm into this. And then the second song, Mur, came on, and it kind of slowly builds, and then all of a sudden you get some growls, and it's just heavy and gnarly. And I was instantly just like, oh, hell yes, I am in. This is what I was looking for. So I've been listening to this album a lot.
Nice.
I mean, a lot. And so that's been a great one. The other one I keep coming back to is the album Kinship by Ioton. In fact, I use Apple Music because I've used iTunes Match before Apple Music was a thing. I have literally tens of thousands of tracks built like in my library there. Mm-hmm. And so trying to rebuild that on Spotify or something, it's not going to work for me. And so I do not get to participate in everybody's fun and exciting Spotify Wrapped. Instead, I get to play around with Apple Music's, ugly redheaded stepchild version of the Apple Music Replay.
To be fair, apparently everyone's Spotify app is fucked this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently they used an algorithm that is broken, and they fired the whole Spotify Wrapped staff to cut costs. And whatever they're using now is not
probably had
working.
some AI do it.
Exactly so. They probably used some sort of generative AI. And the problem is, like, I have heard multiple people say there are artists in my top 5 that I've never listened to. At least one friend of mine said Taylor Swift is listed as my top 3. I have Taylor Swift explicitly blocked so that it will never play a Taylor Swift song on Spotify to me. So it's busted this year.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
So don't feel too bad, because it sounds like maybe, unless they busted it terribly too, you might be in the better position using the Apple Music one.
Well, here's what I can tell you. Based on at least the top albums and the top artists from my Apple Music replay, it seems pretty accurate. I would believe everything that they have said. My number one album for the year is the album Slow Forever by Cobalt, their 2016 sort of return after their first two albums. Cobalt ends up here because this is an album that literally anytime I go, I don't know what to listen to, I can put on Cobalt and all of a sudden, yep, there I am. That's what I wanted to listen to. Huh. But the impressive thing I found was that my number 5 most listened to album at 667 minutes, at least when this playlist, they generated this about a week ago, or it was earlier this last week. Mm-hmm. But at 667 minutes is the album Kinship by Ioton. Now, it's interesting because my most listened to album, Slow Forever, I had listened to 821 minutes. And so Kinship is coming in there. It's important, dear listener, to remember Kinship by Ioton was released on October 25th.
That's so a lot
for it to have made it into my top 5 albums and only having been out for like 5.5, 6 weeks, I think I already am pretty sure I know what my favorite album of the year is. So been listening to that a lot.
I will say,
just for fun,
a fair guess.
I'll give you a quick rundown of my top 5 artists and how long I've listened. Now, it's important, everybody, to remember when I am at work, I turn on music in my office, and then it is playing all day while I am in and out seeing patients. I just keep it playing while I'm dictating. I keeps playing when I'm not in my office. So that's how I can get up to like 80,000 minutes of music listened to a year, which is what Apple Music told me I listened to. But yeah, I listened to almost 3,000 minutes of Exodus and Cattle Decapitation this year, almost 2,000 minutes of Lamb of God and Silosis and Pallbearer, surprisingly coming in the number 5th spot with 1,619 minutes that I listened to Pallbearer, courtesy of, I guess, their new album this year. So, lots of music. A couple other things I thought I'd mention really fast. I did finish the second Mistborn book, Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, and am now working on book number 3, The Hero of Ages. I've read these all before, haven't read them in many years, and so wanted to reread all of them before I got to the 7th book in the Mistborn series, which is the one that came out last year that I haven't read. At the same time, back behind me here is Wind and Truth, the 1,316 page, 63 hour and 30 something minute on audiobook, book 5 of the Stormlight Archive, Wind and Truth. That came yesterday, so I will be moving on to that when I am done with Mistborn. Final thing I wanted to mention is, have you heard of A Man on the Inside, a new Netflix TV show that dropped a couple weeks ago, Eden?
I think so.
So it's created by Mike Schur, the guy who
yes, the lady across the aisle from me on the plane from Palm Springs to Denver was watching this on her iPad. It's got Ted Danson in it.
Ted Danson, yes. So Alyssa was the one who had found out about this. She said we should watch this. I think we watched all 8 episodes in like 2 or 3 nights. It is delightful. It is an absolutely joyful, joyful TV show. I hope everybody watches it. I hope that it gets all the love it deserves. Guess what, folks? That Ted Danson guy, he can act. Go figure.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
It's a lighthearted show but it still has enough weight to it. I'll give you the kind of short, the big picture thing. Ted Danson is a retired engineering professor from one of the California schools, probably UCS, I don't know, somewhere and they live in San Francisco. So probably one of the San Francisco Cal schools. He's a retired engineering professor. His wife died about a year ago when the show starts. And it is not too gradually, but it's fairly quickly revealed that she died from complications of Alzheimer's dementia. And he's just kind of been living an isolated life. His daughter, their relationship basically consists of him cutting out interesting articles from the newspaper, writing around the edge with a pen, fascinating, sticking it in an envelope and mailing it to his daughter, who lives in like a couple hours away in California as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of their relationship. She's always telling him he needs to get out more, he needs to do something. And all of a sudden he sees a classified ad for 75 to like 85-year-old men who can use tech. So he goes to this, and long story short, it's a private investigator who wants to hire him to go undercover at a retirement community to try and figure out who stole one of the residents there. Someone stole her fancy necklace. And so the PI's been hired to investigate this. So she hires him, and he goes undercover as the man on the inside. And the mystery part of it, I'll be honest, I had figured out who it was like the second we meet the character.
Sure.
And that's fine, because that's not the point of the show. The point of the show is Ted Danson's character making these connections again that he's not made in a long time, and interacting with people and dealing with one of the residents who gets moved to the memory care unit, and everything that this brings back up in him as he's watching her going through this Alzheimer's. And it's just super sweet. Again, loved it. Couldn't stop watching it. It was sad that it was only 8 episodes, because when it was done, I was like, I could turn around and watch it again. So, that was great. That was kind of the highlight in terms of shows I've probably watched in the last little while. So
I'm glad it was good. I have a real mixed relationship with Michael Schur's shows. And not that I think they're bad. I just don't seem to enjoy them as much as most people do.
Sure.
That's not true. I do think The Good Place actively becomes bad by the end, but I know that I am alone often in this feeling towards The Good Place. But we don't need to litigate the ending of The Good Place and why I think it definitely fumbles it. But I'm glad this one was good. I saw it and I thought to myself, this might be good. I might be interested in this.
I think it is. It's worth watching. Again, there are moments where it's a little bit heavier than what you might expect, but it has a lot of heart to it. And in the end, I really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, Ted Danson is just a joy to watch. He's a great actor. He's so good.
Really
he really, really is.
The thing is, every so often I'll just watch an episode of Cheers and I'll be like, God, you know who had it? Ted Danson.
He really did. He really did. So, well, let's get on to our main topic of the day, because I'm really curious to talk to you about this. So, listeners, as you may know, we had, November came and holidays. We ended up taking a couple weeks off. We did not watch The Matrix Reloaded, but this week we are back. And at least I hope we have both watched The Matrix Reloaded. So here we are to talk about 2003's The Matrix Reloaded, which, obviously coming after The Matrix, which was a huge movie in 1999. And as we discussed a number of episodes ago, really still just an incredible movie that holds up. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I've never seen any of the other Matrix movies, in part because they got so harshly criticized for being comparatively such bad movies, and they got so much hate piled on them that I just never bothered. I was getting ready to go to medical school when they were coming out. And so it was at a time of my life where it was just like, and we had still, young child. It was an effort to go to the movies, so we weren't going to do that. And then we didn't have cable. We didn't have anything. You got to understand, we didn't have a TV when we moved to North Carolina until our parents came out to visit, and Dad was so annoyed that he couldn't watch anything that he went and bought us a 19-inch CRT TV. So, at the time they came out, I couldn't watch them. And then I heard so much negative stuff about these movies, this and the sequel, that I just never watched them. So Eden, I am curious to hear, let's go kind of our initial reactions. I'll do a quick plot summary, and then let's talk about kind of some of the specifics about this movie. But watching this again, tell me, what do you think about The Matrix Reloaded?
You know who makes a good movie? The Wachowskis, man. Here's the thing. it's a mess, especially in comparison to that first one, which is so tight and like
Yes.
nary a wasted scene. It feels like a real mess. Like they are it is so much more ambitious than the first one in ways that often I think work really well for it. Occasionally it does not. I will say a couple of those fight scenes where clearly this is a CGI Neo instead of a real embodied human gets real stretchy. Feels a lot like it's Gumby doing those stunts instead of a man. However,
agreed.
when the credits hit and it said to be concluded and that Rage Against the Machine song hit, it took every bit of willpower in my body to not hit play next. I need to see number 3 immediately. How did you find it?
So again, it is not as good as The Matrix. I don't know, that seems, especially going back and watching it again recently and seeing how good that movie is and how good it holds up, I think that was an impossible ask. And in some ways, I don't think that they really could have, because again, The Matrix itself is such a tight, as you put it, a tight story, a tight contained, we're going from basically point A to point B. It is get Neo out and help him realize he's the one. That's it. That's it. That's the whole story, really.
Yep.
But we've set up this world where the next story has to be bigger. It has to be more complicated because of this world they've set up. And so it's going to suffer a little bit in that comparison because there is so much more this movie has to do. But I finished this movie.
I think they really wisely leaned into it. They were like,
yeah,
we're going to get weird about it.
Yeah, totally. And similar to you, I finished this movie and saw that to be concluded. And same thing. I'm like, I kind of want to watch number 3 right now. And I thought to myself, I can see why people said it's not as good as the first movie. But this is still a really, really fun movie to watch.
It's incredibly good.
Again,
it's a
damn
mess.
Good movie.
It's a mess, and like you feel the weight of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon on the film industry. Because like we talked about how big The Matrix was in '99 there, and then a year later, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon comes out and blows up inexplicably in the States. For whatever reason, they were like, we're going to bring this wuxia over and like really push it. And they pushed it. And with good reason. I think it's quite good. I think it, honestly, of that like big wuxia push in the early 2000s is one of the weaker ones, but it's still really a good movie. And the wire work is wild in this movie. The way that bodies move, the way that people interact with each other in these, like we have way more action scenes than in the first one. Like there's a much bigger emphasis on like action, and specifically in most of these scenes embodied martial arts action rather than gunplay, because the first one had a lot of gunplay, some martial arts. This one is mostly martial arts, a bit of gunplay, and you can tell that they've just really leaned into what was influencing them as they were making these movies, and I think for the better. I think it really slaps. I thought, I remember liking this movie more than a lot of my friends did, and I have remained really high on it, even though I hadn't probably seen it in 20 years. And I felt like I was vindicated in this watch through of being like, no, this movie rules. This is really good. And it deals, and it's just doing a lot of stuff and building off of the conceptual ideas and the philosophical underpinnings of the first film in really, really interesting ways. Cause like, we didn't talk, I re-listened to our episode and there was a couple of things I was like, man, I should have brought this up. I should have brought this up. I didn't want to relitigate it, and it's been like 6 weeks at this point, so I didn't want to bring it up again. But like, the reason in that first movie that Neo is able to become the one is because he does not think he is the one. And it is the being freed from expectation that allows him to then fulfill the expectation. And that's cool. And I like that. And that's very fun. But in this one, the whole thing is about power and control. And who controls who, and who controls what, and who thinks they have power and does not have power, and who does not realize that the power that they hold is bigger and greater and stronger than it is. And I just think it's such an interesting way of framing this while still being this big budget, big action, highest grossing R-rated movie until Deadpool came out movie, while having these hefty ideas in it still. Because Deadpool's fine. It's stupid as shit. Oh yeah, it ain't smart. It's the dumbest shit you've ever watched in your life, and that's what you go to a Deadpool movie for. But this is thinking the whole time, while also having big old cool fuck off action scenes, but making you think about what does it mean to be in control, who is in control here, why are they in control, and how can those powers shift as the movie rolls on.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a quick rundown and then, let's talk about this more. So this basically time-wise takes place about 6 months after the events of the first movie. Neo and Trinity, obviously they're a couple. Morpheus receives a message calling an emergency meeting of all the ships of Zion. They meet and find out that basically Sentinels are tunneling towards Zion. They're going to get there in 72 hours. Commander Locke tells them all to come back. Morpheus wants one to remain in contact with the Oracle because they're waiting for the Oracle to reach out to Neo again. This lone ship that's hiding out there, we find Agent Smith. He has been freed by Neo. He is still alive, but he's been freed. He is no longer like an agent stuck in the system. And so he's running around and he's kind of creating new copies of himself, and he manages to get part of himself. He takes over a body of a crew member, Bane, and gets pulled out through the little phone into the real world. So he's now inhabiting Bane in Zion. So in Zion, basically, there's a whole big meeting. They have a big thing where Morpheus tells everyone what's happening. There's a big old party / orgy where people are just living it up. And they find out that, they get message. Oracle wants to talk to Neo. So Neo goes, meets with the Oracle, and she reveals that she's part of the Matrix and that Neo has to reach the source, and that to get there, he needs the Keymaker. So the Oracle departs. This is where Smith shows up, lets him know he's a rogue program, clones himself over and over. This is kind of one of our real big fights, kind of first big fight with a bunch of copies of Smith with Neo, who eventually then does his little Superman thing, takes off and goes away. Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity then go and visit the Merovingian, who is imprisoning the Keymaker. The Merovingian is another rogue program, has his own agenda, refuses to let him go. Again, this plays into what you were talking about. There's a whole scene here about control and this, that, and the other. And then the Merovingian leaves because clearly he's going to go get it on with this lady who was there, and his wife Persephone. She's tired of his shit. And so she takes Neo and Morpheus and Trinity to the Keymaker. There's another big fight while they try and get the Keymaker out, and Neo has to fight off a bunch of the Merovingian's henchmen. And then we get to kind of this great big scene with the freeway. So this huge freeway action scene where they're being chased by police, they're being chased by agents, they're being chased, and you've got Morpheus and you've got Trinity, and they've got the Keymaker, and then Neo is trying to get to them. He was hundreds of miles away, so he's like flying to them. Big action scene. They get there. They have a whole, they rescue the Keymaker, and then they get these three ships, and it's the Nebuchadnezzar, the Vigilant, and the Logos. They're going to help the Keymaker reach the source. They've got to do this. They've got to take out a power plant so that it goes offline. Another crew has to disable the backup power, bypassing the security, which will give Neo enough time to enter the source. Now, Neo's been having this vision of Trinity dying. He asks her to stay on the Nebuchadnezzar. She says yes. They blow up the Logos crew blows up the power plant, but the Vigilant crew is destroyed by a Sentinel. So they all drop dead. Trinity realizes that the backup power is coming online, that she has to go in and shut that off. So she goes into the Matrix, and in the meantime, Morpheus and Neo and the Keymaker are trying to get to the source. Trinity shuts off the backup power, making it so Neo can get into the source, and he goes into a room that's covered with TVs, and we got an old dude sitting in a chair. This is the architect. The architect is the creator of the Matrix. He explains that the One, Neo, is an intentional part of the design of the Matrix. This is now the 6th iteration. There have been 5 versions before. And what Neo needs to do is he has to stop the Matrix's fatal system crash that recurs due to humans' free will. This will lead to a certain number of humans gradually refusing to accept the simulation, and this creates a whole bunch of problems. So Neo has a choice. He either reboots the Matrix from the source and picks a small handful of survivors who can then go and repopulate Zion, as the predecessors all did, or he can let go and try and save Trinity, which is going to cause the Matrix to crash and kill everyone in it. Neo goes and he saves Trinity. She is shot by one of the agents. He manages to catch her just before she hits the ground. He flies up, takes her to a thing, now has this ability where he can basically kind of digital hand reaches in, removes the bullet from her chest, restarts her heart. They go back to the real world. Sentinels are coming to find them. The Sentinels have this new trick where instead of landing on them and blasting them with like their beams like they did in the first movie, they're chucking these bombs that go flying at them. Neo knows that that's what's happening. They run out. They get outside of their ship in the real world, and their ship blows up. The Sentinels are coming, and all of a sudden Neo realizes he can sense the machines in the real world. He kind of stops them, fries them all, and then falls into a coma. Another ship comes, picks him up, and we find out that the other ships defending Zion were wiped out by machines after someone prematurely activated an EMP, and that the only survivor of that group was Bane, who has Smith in him. And then the movie ends, and that's where we get the to be concluded and a second Rage Against the Machine banger rolls.
It's just like you said, you get to the end and you're just like, next, I got to know what happens. I got to go here immediately.
Totally.
And it's just, I don't know. It's dealing with so many cool ideas while still having some of the sickest fights I've ever seen in a movie. Like that scene where the dudes in the Merovingians' estate are attacking Neo, and they're all using because of course the asshole in the Merovingian has walls just covered with weaponry. So dudes are just grabbing stuff off the walls and trying to fight. And
we've got big swords, and we've got like spiked maces, and one dude gets just this like spiked mace in the head, and Neo's got size, and he's like pinning people to walls with the size, and
it's just sick. It's just like they just have it. I cannot think of other filmmakers who every time I watch one of their projects, I'm just like, for whatever reason, the way that they see cinema and the way that they want to put things on the screen is the way I want to look at them, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not saying they're the best, because these are messy, genre movies, and there's no world. My favorite movies might be genre movies. There's no world where those are the best movies made. Like, don't get it twisted.
Sure.
But like, they work here for whatever reason. They work really, really, really well. And the cast is just incredible. You know, Lawrence Fishburne is still out here killing it with every scene he's in. The way, like, the calm strength and confidence that he has, that like, no, this very particular, very specific, and maybe illogical path forward is the correct path. Like, I know it to be true, and it is true whether you think it's true or not. And just that like quiet confidence he has, and it is able to like convey to those around him to win a lot of them over to his cause. You know, like we lost Tank and what was the other brother's name?
Dozer.
Tank and Dozer were not in this movie. One of them died. I don't remember if both of them died, maybe. I think.
I was going to say, I can't remember either, because I know
neither of them are in
the
this
one
movie.
dies when,
One for sure dies. I thought maybe Dozer lives. I think Tank dies and maybe Dozer lives, but maybe he doesn't. I don't remember. But regardless, their brother-in-law Link is now the dude who is both piloting and being the operator. And they're clearly running on a much smaller crew now, because obviously Morpheus is like, I don't know how to trust people anymore. I trusted Joey Pants's character for years, and this is how he did us all dirty. So clearly they're running a skeleton crew on this ship. Like Link's family is all mad about it. But like, he's like, this is the right thing to do. And like, his wife is clearly not happy about it, but she's like, I trust you. And that scene where like the very beginning scene is between Link and Morpheus, and Link is questioning Morpheus's decisions. And Morpheus says to him, I ask you one thing on this ship. And what is it? That you trust me. And he says, I will. And then Morpheus gives a look.
Morpheus looks at him.
He says, I do. And like, that is, it's just really good the way that like he is such a like shepherd of men in every scene that he is in, and is so magnetic with his presence that no wonder like people believe him, and no wonder people are like, yeah, well, these are against our orders, but I just think Morpheus is right. I just think he's right. Yeah, it's really good. Carrie-Anne Moss is really killing it. You know, they don't give her enough to do, but I think that she is really doing a lot of great work in this movie. You feel the like relationship that has deepened between her and Neo. Like, you feel it in their scenes. There's some really interesting scenes when they get to Zion, and how uncomfortable Neo is made by the fact that he is a messianic figure to these people. Like, they get off this elevator that's clearly to their place, and they're
like, and it's important to understand, before the elevator door opens, they're like, they're getting ready to, I mean, you know, their plan
they're tongue deep in each other's mouths.
They're going to go and get busy.
Oh yeah, no, they're like, we have 20 hours till this ship is fueled up again. Let's count how many times we can go fuck. And then they open the doors, and there are throngs, dozens, if not hundreds of people who are like, Neo, you're here. Please bless my child. Please say a prayer for my father. All these sorts of things. And so Trinity is just like, they need you. And he's like, I need you. She's like, they need you more. And like, just that understanding between the two of them, they're still able to get together. You know, what better time to have sex than during the orgy rave? So they make it happen.
Wow scene.
They make it happen. But yeah, it's just so interesting the way that like, because one of the things, and this is talking about bigger themes too, one of the things that the architect talks about when he gets to the architect is that every other predecessor who was the one has always made the decision, well, of course, I can't end everything. So what I can do is do the reset. We get this amount of people. We pop them into Zion. The whole cycle starts again. And 150 years later, it all comes to a halt again. But what's the one thing Neo has that none of those other ones had? Love.
Yeah.
That's the thing. All the rest of them have like platonic brotherly love for mankind. They have connection with humanity as a whole. But none of them have had this type of like super important, super heated, super hyper specific relationship that Neo and Trinity have. So Neo,
and you can tell So you can tell the importance of this because, again, this is how the movie starts. The movie starts with this scene of Carrie-Anne Moss driving her motorcycle, jumping off it as it falls into this guard station, explodes, and then she's going into this building. You don't know why she's doing anything in this building when the movie starts. This is all played out again when she goes in to stop the backup power from coming on. But then she's being chased by an agent. She's jumping out backwards, firing. The agent's jumping after her, firing. She gets a bullet. And then what you see is somebody hit a car and just smash into a car, and then boom, Neo wakes up. So he's been having this vision. And I think if I'm remembering correctly, he even brings it up with the Oracle.
He does.
Like, this is something that is like, and I appreciate that it makes it so when Neo makes his decision at the end with the architect, it feels true to his character. It feels like the right decision that he would make because this is what he's been carrying. There's a number of different times where Trinity says to him, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he doesn't want to tell her about this dream he's having. And so this has been kind of eating at him the whole time. And so again, it plays into that where, okay, this one, yep, this is time number 6. But hey, guess what, guys? Something is different this time.
Yeah. Also, it's just, the action's just sick. Like, the fight scenes are so cool. The way that Neo is flying around as Link says, doing his Superman shit, which, like, Link would not know what Superman is. Although he wasn't from the Matrix, so he wouldn't know who this Superman is. Maybe he was. It was Tank and Dozer's family that were all naturals. I don't remember if Link ever was inside the Matrix or not.
Sure.
But regardless, it looks so cool. Like, never in cinema is a dude cooler looking than Keanu Reeves in these Matrix movies.
Yeah. The only one that, and it still was great to watch, but that fight with all of the Agent Smiths after the Oracle, after he meets with the Oracle, that was probably the one that was the most egregious in terms of, there were moments where I'm like, well, and there's that like weird elasticity almost in some of the bodies as they're flipping around. But then there are moments where nowhere near to the degree, but you remember in The Mummy Returns when the Scorpion King rocks face and it's like, so it kind of looks like the Rock, but it just has this weird, like funny rubber quality to it. There were moments of that where it was like, that is clearly not Keanu Reeves' face. This is, that's the one that didn't hold up. The huge action scene on the freeway, I thought that holds up spectacularly well.
That whole thing is incredible from start to finish. Yeah, no, the dodgiest one is that first big Agent Smith fight. And and it's really cool until he grabs that pole. And that's when it becomes the ropiest CG you've seen in a minute. And like limbs stretching and moving in ways limbs would never move and all that sort of stuff. And that it gets pretty rough there for a minute. But yeah, no, that scene on the freeway is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like, it is an incredible. Has the katana, rolls out of the way at the last second, slashes through the side of a fucking Escalade so it flips, and then he shoots the tank until it explodes. That's the coolest thing that's ever happened in a movie.
It was very cool. Yeah, that scene absolutely holds up really, really well. But I think it was really interesting. You bring it up, and we see this idea of kind of choice versus, again, is it choice? Is it control? What is it? This comes up so many times. It's a central part of the whole interaction they have with the Merovingian, where, again, the Merovingian's just this horny French dude, and he sends this lady a piece of cake that, again, he's programmed that it's going to make her heart rate go up. And we get this like, okay, look, maybe it's just me. But
it's a dodgy choice to show her the least sexy orgasm I've ever seen on a film.
I was going to say the least necessary scene in the movie because we're not stupid. We all know what's happening, but then it's like the camera drops down and her legs like go digital, the green code of the Matrix, and then you can tell she's having an orgasm. Yeah, that part was. Then she gets up and excuses herself. But that whole thing is, that his speech is about like the control he has and the control he's exerting over these people, and you can tell that that's a big thing because they don't have to say it And you can tell that his wife Persephone has been, that he's probably screwed around with her this way too and manipulated her and stuff like that. Sorry, what else were you going to say?
No, just that. That was unnecessary. I already thought the Merovingian sucked because he was French. You didn't need to also make him like a gross pervert.
Right, pervy gross French. But then you get,
that comes with the territory.
Right? But, you see this where, and I think it's not just, I think change, the idea of change is another theme that's in this movie. Because again, the architect is acting like he's in total control. He knows what's going to happen because he's done this 5 times now. This is time number 6. But something has changed this time. You get this scene where, we find out that Captain Niobe and Morpheus were a thing at some point, but now she's with Commander Locke. And so at the whole party, dance, rave, whatever scene, Morpheus and Niobe are talking and she says something about him dancing and he goes, oh, some things don't change. And he holds out his hand like to dance with her. Locke shows up and he's like, oh, Niobe. And she's like, oh, some things do. And she goes off with him. But then a little bit later on, when the council is asking for volunteers to go and basically kind of protect the Nebuchadnezzar and help out with this, while Neo's going to talk to the Oracle on all this, she volunteers to go, and Locke comes over and she brings up, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it's almost like a mirror image of that little thing where she says, something about some things do change. And so it's kind of this idea throughout of choice, control, our ability to change things, our ability to be different, to do different things based on, again, are we making a choice or are we being controlled?
Yeah. It's just good. It's just good filmmaking. It's good storytelling. It's well acted. It's well shot mostly.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the dodgy CG.
Hey,
it was 2003.
Remember, it was 2003. Exactly.
Also, I've seen some pretty dodgy Iron Men in some of those later Marvel movies too, so I'm not going to hold dodgy body physics against them when the biggest movies in America are still doing it.
It's true. They're bad. They're still bad CG. So, no, I agree. It was a great movie. I was very, very pleased with it when it was all said and done. I came away from it and really was just like, I don't get the hate that these have gotten over the years. No. Now, who knows? Maybe number 3 is just going to be a huge steaming pile and I'll come away from it all pissed off and go, I get it now. But I don't know. This was pretty good. It was not as good as the first, but it's still a really good movie.
Yeah. I'm eager to see Revolutions, man.
I am too. So, well, anything else you want to bring up about this before we wrap it up here, Eden?
I don't think so. It's just a really good movie.
It really was. Again, I was a little nervous because there's been so much crap talked about these movies over the years. But I came away from this thinking it's a pretty damn good movie.
I'll tell you said. What, the other thing it made me want to do, I wish The Matrix Online was still available, man. I would hop in and play 200 hours of a Matrix MMORPG for the next 2 months. No questions asked. I would become an absolute sicko for The Matrix Online if it was still online.
It's probably good then that it isn't.
I would do it in a second. It's making me think, should I find a way to play enter the Matrix? Surely you should be able to play it somehow.
You'd think, but I'm sure it's for some reason or another, whether it's a rights thing or something like that, it's probably tied up somewhere. But
I'm not saying you need to play it legally. I'm saying I bet you could find an Xbox.
Find some way to play it.
I bet you could find an Xbox disc and put it in your Xbox Series X, and it would be like, backwards compatibility, baby. You bet I can play this.
Well, if you happen to go down that rabbit hole, I definitely want to hear about it. So
I'll let you know if I end up doing it.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this week. We'll be back in another couple of weeks, but until that time, please go ahead and leave us a review, leave us a star rating, share this episode or any other episode with someone you think might be into this. And if you've got any feedback for us, reach out to us at feedback@themiddleofculture.com. And until we're back again in another 2 weeks, talk to you then.
This is Palm Springs Eden signing off from the desert.